Hey everyone, this is Nitro from the Rocky Valley server in the Guild Snow. So in this video, I wanted to talk a bit about soldiers and the mechanics that they work through. So, first things first, let's do a quick overview of how battles work. And the way it works is each character you have, it consists of your hero as well as 10 soldiers. So, all heroes in this game, including let's say the dragon bosses, they attack 20 times in the fight. And in addition, each soldier attacks 2 times. So basically, there's a total of 40 attacks potentially for every fight for each player. Now, if your soldiers are damaged, right, there's less soldiers alive, which means you would be attacking less, which means, of course, less damage dealt. And as a quick example, let's say you're fighting against the Thunder Dragon, which actually consists of just a hero without any soldiers, right? So, the dragon, let's assume it's doing 20 hits, and each hit does around 500 damage, okay? And let's also say your 10 soldiers each have 550 hit points. So that's actually above the 500 damage. What this means is each soldier will actually take 2 hits before dying. So, you know, the first hit for 500 damage knocks them down to 50 hit points. Then the second hit of 500 damage takes out the remaining hit points and they die off. So it really means that your soldiers will tank all 20 hits from the Thunder Dragon, and then your hero will be untouched. You see things like this happening in, let's say, my Thunder Dragon video against the Thunder Dragon level 55. If you want to see the exact example, I will have a link in my in this video description. And if you just click on that link, you'll see the exact time where this occurs. So, that's an interesting thing about soldiers. They basically take, I guess, what you can call overkill damage if they still have hit points alive to take a second hit. So that, I guess, highlights the importance of soldiers and leveling them up properly so that they can take more damage. Now, with the soldiers covered, let's talk about soldier stats, okay? First, of course, keeping your training ground upgraded so that they get additional hit points, attack, defense, magic defense is very important. But in addition to just these upgrades, what is also incredibly important, in fact, is what is called your hero boost. So let me just bring up Leon as an example. Okay? Under the soldiers, you see, listed right here, it shows hero boost, plus 40% hit points, plus 40% attack, plus 10% defense, and plus 10% magic defense. Well, where does this hero boost come from? Well, first of all, each hero seems to have a slight addition to each of these stats, okay? But in addition to that natural addition that the heroes provide, a lot of the hero boost actually comes from your bonds. And it's, specifically speaking, it's the first and third bond of every hero. Let me just bring up Leon as an example. So, my Leon's bonds, the first 3 are maxed. And the first one gives all stats for soldiers increased by 10%. The third one gives hit points and attack of soldiers increased by 15%, right? So what this means is all stats get plus 10%, and then hit points and attack specifically are getting 25% addition. So, let's go back to the soldier page for Leon specifically. So, we'll bring that back up. So, breaking it down, right? All stats 10%, so defense and magic defense, that came from the bonds right here, right? And we said hit points and attack are increased by 25% each. So the remaining 15% addition for hit points and 15% addition for attack are Leon's natural addition. So, these bonds, boosting up these attack values and hit points and so on, are incredibly important in how your troops, your soldiers, will perform. So, as an example, I'll bring up another character that I have barely upgraded, which is Luna. Okay? And in the case of Luna, I believe I do have her first bond up at 5%. So that's why all the stats are getting boosted 5%. And she herself gives soldiers plus 15% attack and plus 15% magic defense. So, you know, compared to Leon, who was fully upgraded, giving 40% to these stats, it's a huge difference. So upgrading your hero's bonds, incredibly important for how your soldiers will perform, because it will dramatically affect how much damage you will do. Just a quick note as well, okay? Let me just quickly bring up a mage. So, actually, let's bring up, let's say, Hein, okay? Now, if you look at Hein, it shows that even these magic soldiers who do magic damage, they only have an attack stat. They do not have an intelligence stat. So what this means, in fact, is, for example, hero talents, which affects stats. If it affects attack and defense and magic defense, it will actually boost these soldiers as well. However, if it affects intelligence, just as Hein does, these soldiers get no boost. Okay? This is actually why melee characters, like physical attackers, do so much more damage than mages do generally. Because a lot of the melee characters have talents that buff attack values, which will buff their soldiers. Meanwhile, there's only one mage who can actually increase her soldiers' damage. Okay? All the other mages generally buff intelligence or magic defense or whatever. They don't actually buff attack. And the only mage whose talent actually buffs soldiers is actually Lana. And that's because Lana's ability increases magic damage by a certain percentage, depending on her star level. So, this is why Lana is the one mage that can hit incredibly hard with single target attacks. And no other mage can really compare to that. Alright, so we've talked about the soldier stats being heavily affected by hero boosts, as well as by talents, right? So let me just give a quick example of, let's say, a hero whose talent really buffs soldiers. And actually, believe it or not, Lard is a great example. Because when initiating combat with hit points 80% or higher, attack and defense are increased by 25%. So, this means his soldiers get an additional 25% boost to their attack and defense, you know? So Lard, believe it or not, can be very, very powerful. It's not very well known that's the case, but if he's used properly and leveled up, he is incredibly powerful. So there's one last point I wanted to mention, and this last point is that soldier stats are actually very, very heavily affected by your hero's level. So, as an example, let me just bring up two different characters who both have angel units. Okay? And the first will be Matthew, who is only level 36. So, at level 36, Matthew's angels have 305 hit points, 316 attack, 156 defense, and 180 magic defense. Okay? And Emmerich, who has the exact same soldiers, have the exact same stats. Okay? These two have the exact same stats because they're the same level, so their soldiers are the exact same. The only difference, of course, would be the hero boost. Now, since we've covered that, let's again bring up Leon, who is known to have angels as well. So, Leon soldiers, 449 attack, 449 hit points, 464 attack, 228 defense, and 267 magic defense. So you can see there's just a huge jump in every stat, simply because Leon is at max level, level 60, as opposed to Matthew and Emmerich, who are only level 36. So what that means is, the higher level your hero is, the stronger the soldiers. In fact, this can actually be used to your advantage for Guild Wars. Okay? Just as a quick note, I'm just gonna quickly open up Guild Wars. Now, Guild Wars, if you're fighting on the map, which is the faction specific, like this one, that's Princess, or let's say Origins or whatever, whenever you fight on that map that your character is a part of, they get a 40% combat power boost, right? This 40% combat power boost affects the soldiers. So the soldiers get 40% more attack, 40% more defense, 40% more magic defense, and hit points. Okay, so what this means is one of my guildmates, he actually has a level 60 hero with no equipment. And that hero is Sonya. The reason he leveled Sonya up to level 60 is because she's part of 3 different factions: Empire, Dark, and Princess. Okay? What my guildmate does is he runs Sonya at level 60 with no equipment. And for the Guild War battles that are at level 45, 48, and even 50, he uses Sonya with no equipment and relies purely on her soldiers to fight. Okay? Those soldiers, with the 40% stat buff from the map and an additional 20% from the faction buff, those soldiers alone, with Sonya having no equipment, are able to one-shot most enemies that Sonya will face. Okay? In addition, if she one-shots a target, right, her talent then buffs the attack and defense by another 14%. So it just makes Sonya like a surprising killing machine in Guild Wars battles. Again, she's relying on... his Sonya has no equipment, so he's purely relying on the soldiers. But with the stat buffs, with Sonya providing plus attack from the hero boost and so on, his Sonya was able to one-shot targets with no equipment. So that's just one way you can, I guess, clear out the lower level versions of the Guild Wars battles by having high level heroes and just relying on their soldiers. In fact, just as a side note, I myself am leveling up my Lard for that very reason. He's currently level 45, and I'm trying to slowly bring him up to level 60, because that way, with the attack and defense buff here, and powerful soldiers, he should be able to do a lot of damage on the Guild Wars maps, without me having to constantly move equipment from one character to another. So that pretty much covers, I guess, the 4 main points I wanted to talk about with regards to soldiers. So first, because soldiers do 20 attacks just like your hero, soldiers are very, very important in every fight. So leveling up the training grounds is very important. Second is you really need to level up your hero bonds, because those bonds really give a pretty dramatic stat increase. For example, once again, you know, if I bring up, let's say, Lard, my Lard is not upgraded in bonds at all right now, but, you know, if I bring this up, this would be another 10% attack, defense, hit points, and so on. And if I get access to the third one, this would also be, let's say, another 15% attack, 15% defense. So with these 2 additions, you know, he's getting 25% more attack, 25% more defense, and throw in his personal bonuses, which I believe is 15% more attack. It goes up to plus 40% attack. So it's, yeah, getting those bonds upgraded, very important for your soldiers. And last but not least, of course, try to upgrade your training ground as much as possible. Those stats in the training ground really do matter. Is there anything else I wanted to mention? Oh, yes, one last thing. So, generally speaking, the good damage soldiers, they have around 35 to 40% attack addition boost when you add up the bonds as well as their personal boosts, okay? If you want to see heroes that should be doing a lot of damage but actually don't, a good example would actually be Vargas, okay? And the reason Vargas is a good example is because with Unbreakable Guardian, his attack can generally get up to like around 700 attack or so, right? With his defense being at, let's say, I don't know, let's say around 400 or 500, his attack would go up to 600 to 700. So with 600 to 700 attack, you'd expect Vargas to be able to one-shot targets, just like, let's say, Leon does. But that's never the case. And the reason for that is because of his soldiers. Vargas's bonds provides no attack addition, okay? So what that means is the only bond that provides attack addition is the first one, which gives plus 10% to all stats. So his soldiers cap out at plus 10% attack. That's it. So with that, it just means his soldiers are very tanky, they have a lot of hit points, a lot of defense, but they don't do much attack. So even when combined with Vargas's high attack value of, let's say, 700, the end result is he usually does not kill off the enemy characters in one shot. Instead, he might kill off, you know, all the soldiers, but he won't actually kill off the enemy hero. So I hope you found this video useful. I tried to cover, you know, the main points of soldiers, how to keep them upgraded and powerful, and in as brief of a video as possible. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment section below. And yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. On this note, Nitro out.